All right. What's up, guys? Have a great 88. Back after a couple years, actually. It's been a couple years since I've actually done this work. But, as I mature and as I come into understanding and I get signs that just pop up, and it's like, bro, you really gotta, like, I have a burden, and the burden is that I'm fucking curious. I'm a curious individual, and my curiosity has led me to learning a lot of stuff I never really intended to learn. And now, me sitting at the intersection of of learning information and embodying it, I feel a burden to, you know, yeah, I have a burden to let the ancestors speak, if you will. And when I mean by ancestors, I don't want you to get airy fairy here. I just want you to understand, like, there are certain things that are beyond our explanation. Certain things that this society that we live in, they just don't want you to understand about yourself. And there is a consistent effort, a very, very consistent effort to get people not to understand certain things, about themselves. And I'm I'm a rebel by nature, but I realize that you can't rebel against um, somebody if you don't even know who you are. You don't know what source to even um, back yourself by. You don't even know what frequency to be on. Anyways, enough of that bullshit, man. Um, if you're new to the channel, which everybody is, I like to do research on um, the real American shit. The real America, the real American shit. Um, and figuring out who our identity is. And not just that, I am I'm like a Malcolm X, bro. I don't know how to explain this shit. Like, I won't say I'm literally like a Malcolm X nigga. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, I I am a I am a figure that um like an ambassador. I'm like an ambassador, if you will. Um, and that's what comes with with not courage, but that's what comes with curiosity. Like, you know, once you go down the fucking rabbit hole, bro, you know what I'm saying, you initiate yourself. Anyways, man, let's just go ahead and get into the shit. So today I was at my job. Y'all can't see this at all, actually. Hold on. I was at my job, right? And damn. Grab your house. Yeah. Alright. So we can actually see what I'm talking about here. Alright. So yeah, one of my coworkers actually had this today. And I've been learning Spanish recently. And I noticed this, you know, and I was like, man, um, it's got Spanish stuff on it, and it was just like an interesting thing that she had in her car, and I was like, man, like, this is so cool. Where'd you get this from? And she was like, yeah, I got this from the tienda, right? And some people will instantly look at this and be like, oh, that's an Orisha, right? This Orisha. If you look on ChatGPT, LiGPT, they'll say, "Oh, it's an Orisha. It's a it's Chango, right? Chango is a deity that they say is exclusive to Yoruba and Santeria and West African stuff, right? Zambalo in some cases, but it's a sort of veneration, right? Which we're gonna talk about. Veneration is a thing that consistently comes up, throughout antiquity. But that's what they'll say, right? But of course, this deity is a big part of Latin America. It's a huge part of the uh, Afro Latina community, right? Latina Afro Latina. It tells you where my head is. Um, the Afro Latin community, or what they call the Afro Latin community. Interesting thing about the Afro Latin community is that it is not a monolith. When you talk about the Afro Latin communities, you aren't talking about a monolithic group of people that are all from the same descent. Okay, you could be talking about literal Africans that came there, which there were. And I could break that down, because of course I know the African. When you're talking about Africans, you're talking, you're not talking about the same numbers that were given by the stories. You're actually talking about a very small group of people, some sent from as Portuguese missionaries, um, you know, some sent as foreigners, and you also have people with ties from everywhere coming back and forth there. Shit from the Philippines, from India. You got all types of stuff happening in the antiquity of Latin America. You can even look on the faces of a lot of the a lot of the relics that exist in Mexico, and you'll notice that there are multiple different types of phenotypes found. And it's very interesting. So it seems to me that at one point in time, what we considered it to be Latin America was a cultural is a cultural melting pot, right? A cultural melting pot. Why is this important? Because this you know what they call chango macho, chango chango macho, right? Yeah, chango macho, right? Chango is also, what I found out today, is the name of an actual group of indigenous people. And you look up Chango on the internet, and you won't find any real pictures, but they are a what they call a group of people, And when you say Chango, or some say Shango, it also starts to phonetically bend towards she, which we know that's the name of the Olmec. Um, and also, you talk about the origins of the Olmec. So a lot of people talk about that and how Olmec civilization is. They call it the mother civilization, but there were civilizations that predate the Olmec civilizations, and many historians will say that a lot of the Olmec civilizations come from civilizations that existed in South America at a long time ago, and of course, the Chambu people, right? Like Shaloki, Cherokee, Ichiti, Uh, you start talking to that sha chichemek, right? Then you bring up Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, Louisiana. You bring up all of these people that shata, right? That's in America. Um, that has a very, very old uh, uh, tie down to South America and around Argentina. Believe Argentina, Chile, right? And I've heard a lot of people talk about Chile being uh, Chile and also Peru. I think they found some of these people, Chile and Peru, right? And we think about that. Well, there's a lot of people that say Jerusalem is um, Peru, Peru and Heru, because J didn't exist. Etymology, so forth and so forth. You get it. And I started to find depictions, right? Like this depiction right here. Uh, see if I can zoom in on it. Yes. I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to focus this. Yeah, here we go. Sorry. Alright. Okay, but yeah, as you can see right here on the right, you have the Florida Indian, right? Same regalia, and then you have the Blackamoor statue in 1724, right? Um, very interesting, right? Same exact regalia, and then you also see the same exact thing, but then when you look this up, they're gonna try to tell you, they're literally gonna try to tell you, even though we see this in Florida, we literally see this everywhere, right? The same deity, right? Chango, and then they just want to say, well, this is just a part of a Yoruba tradition, right? But even the Yoruba people, right? Let's say this is coming from Yoruba or Nigeria or somewhere like that. Well, you start talking about the origins of these people, and these people will even tell you. A lot of these people will tell you, "Hey, we don't even have our origins here. We have our origins because Nigeria didn't exist as a state, as a country until very, 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 very much later in history." Um, So when we're talking about Yoruba and all of this stuff right now, which I've heard many people even say that Yoruba, what they call Yoruba, even has some etymological similarities with things in America. Um, Yoruba and all of these different cultures that they're saying are emanations of the Orisha and these entities that they always hide in as as deities of veneration rather than maybe possibly actual kings. Could these have been actual figures? Could these have been actual, you know, people? Because they say, this was a king, a Nigerian king, right? But of course, when you start conflating Africa and then you start African history and then American history, and then you want to say African American, and then it gets real confusing, right? You start to have some convergence because then you're talking about Barbary, you're talking about a lot of different things, right? And this is where I'm gonna shut the fuck up. I'm gonna let a guy read something, and then I'm just gonna comment on it because I'm giving you my just my thoughts on this, and then we're gonna look at some other stuff. And yeah, let's just go.
Hey, what's up, YouTube family? It's your favorite black guy from Nebraska. Yes, there's plenty of black people here in Nebraska. I'm back today with some more thought-provoking content.
And
you answered it correctly.
shout out to From a Gentleman's Perspective.
The original Africa.
Shout out to From a Gentleman's Perspective for this. Thank you for reading.
And you're going to be surprised by the title, but I ask that you open your mind to be able to receive this thought-provoking information. Were the Creek Indians the original Greeks? You're going to find that the similarities between the Greeks, the current Greeks, and the Creek Indians are very, very similar. So it's going to be some good content. You guys will enjoy it. So I ask, before you judge the title, listen to it and allow it to marinate your mind. And if you don't like it, that's fine. But if you do, appreciate it. So let's go ahead and get started. The Creek Indians were the original Greeks. I first revealed this information on Facebook back in September 2021. And this is the author speaking, not me, which is before anyone published this information. And here's the link to that. It is important for me to note that date of publication because others have made YouTube videos for profit using my information and not giving me credit for my research. Now that is what this author is saying. The Creek Indians spoke a language similar to the Greeks, according to the book New Light from the Great Pyramid. The sun was...
So let's just stop right there. You heard him. He said the Greeks spoke a similar language to the... Now, a lot of people, when you start getting into this type of knowledge and they want to refute it or they don't even want to look at it, they say, well, where's your language now? You're speaking English. English is nothing. This is not your language. Why aren't you speaking your original language? Where is it? And they laugh at that and they joke at that, right? And the thing about that is that, people who come from this perspective, they don't have the full grasp of what's actually going on here in America, because we're all speaking our ancestors' languages right now, actually. Because if the Greeks are the Creeks, and what languages do the Greeks speak? Let me just put this in here, right? Just so y'all see what I'm talking about. What language is I probably should have did this on my phone. It's an Indo-European language, right? Okay. It's an Indo-European language. So if it's an Indo-European language, right? And English, many of its different components come back down to Proto-Indo-European languages. And language is nothing but a synthesis of shared meanings, sayings that evolve over time and are used over time. That is how language is created. And it's not a time when a language formulates one time at one particular time. English within itself has thousands of words that come from different places. Some Germanic roots, some Latin roots, French is still Latin. And anytime you go through that, you're going directly back to PIE, Proto-Indo-European languages. So if they're finding Proto-Indo-European artifacts in America, and we're speaking it, what does that make the Creeks? But yeah, let me look this up real quick, because I don't want to be off, and then somebody in the comment sections try to say something, right? You know. So let's ask a question. Is there evidence of a script in the American South? Of course there is. Yes, there is strong evidence of a script in the American South. Specifically, I'm just reading this. I'm just reading this right here. I'm just reading this. Specifically, the Cherokee syllabary developed by the Sequoia in the early 1800s, which I would not constitute that and printed materials representing a unique Native American writing system for communication and cultural recording distinct from Mesoamerican scripts like Maya or Epi-Olmec, right? And you look at pre-Columbian writing, you start seeing stuff like that, right? You start seeing stuff like that, right? Looking for all the script. You start seeing stuff like this. Can you see it? Probably can't see it very well, but essentially you interesting. Looks kind of like the alphabet, but you know, and you know, Spanish is the same way. You know, Spanish is not much different than English. Really, it's really not much different. Um, but let's continue. I just wanted to put that in perspective before we get into him and let him cook.
Jesus. New Life from the Great Pyramid, Google Books. Now the Ohio Valley was the ancient seat of the Greek Indians. Check that out. The Ohio Valley was the ancient seat of the Greek Indians, who are supposed to represent the powerful Telugu nation. Recently, in translating the New Testament into the language of the Creek Indians, the construction of the Creek language was found remarkably like the Greek. End quote. Remarkably like the Greek language, it is just code for the Creeks speaking the Greek language, since the Creeks were the ancient Greeks. Wow. Let's go ahead and continue into this information so he can substantiate this claim. Additionally, with the use of etymology, we learn that Creek and Greek are etymologically and phonetically one and the same word. For example, phonetically, Creek and Greek have virtually the same pronunciation. That is, the same sounding. Etymologically, we learn from studying the classic Latin that the letter C was in use before the letter G, wow, was invented in 2030 BC. And the letter G gets its letter form from the letter C, which is obvious since the letter G is just a letter C with a leg or a hook attached to the end of it.
Yep.
In classical Latin, represented G only in C and CN. The abbreviation of the pronomina, first names, Geis and Gnos. The letter G was created in the 3rd century BC to distinguish the voiced G from voiceless K. Its letter form derived from C by the addition of a diacritic or stroke. End quote. By learning all this information, since the letter G is derived from the C, the Creek is older than Greek, since the letter C predates the letter G. Therefore, the Creek Indians are the real ancient Greeks that were written about in classical times. Here are some images of Muskogee Indian chiefs. Figure 268 is Mary Williams. Now, we can go ahead and go to that. I'm going to show you. This is 268. Alright, so we're going to go to this picture of this lady. Figure 268, Mary Williams, 1924. Mary Williams was the matriarch
Mary
clan
Williams
of the Yamasee of the
Mary Williams. You hear that? Williams. Right? You got a last name Williams. Alright. Y'all have Moorish names. You have Moorish names. Taniqua, Shaniqua, DeAndre. These are names that are directly from okay, let me just
nation she's seen during her trip to Egypt. Okay, so we're going to go back to what we're reading, because I just want to go show you guys that picture. Mary Williams was the matriarch and clan mother of the Yamasee of the Creek Nation. She is seen in 1924 during her trip to Egypt. Figure 269 is the Moorish Muskogee Indian chiefs. So let's go ahead and look at that. Figure 269, here we go. Muskogee Indian chiefs from Alabama, never enslaved. Caesar Bruner, 1828 to 1923. So here's the picture of these individuals of the Muskogee Creek Indian Caesar Bruner. The bottom image is Muskogee Creek Chief Silas Jefferson. So let's go ahead and read. Figure 269 is two Moorish Muskogee Indian chiefs I just showed you. The first is Caesar Bruner, 1828 to 1923. Caesar was a Seminole chief who was born to free Creek Seminole parents, William and Oppie Bruner, who were from Alabama. The second Muskogee Creek Indian chief is Silas Jefferson, 1835 to 1913. He was chief of the Wind Clan, which was the largest clan in the Creek Nation.
Wind Clan.
Tuskegee Town.
Wind Clan. Now we talking about Wind Clan. There we go. Now we talking about Wind Clan. Now we talking about Wind Clan. Now we get into bloodlines now.
Tuskegee, Alabama, in the Old Creek Nation. The Greeks were blood allies with the Seminole Indians. The Seminoles were mighty warriors who never surrendered Florida to Spain or to the United States. And they refer.
And remember, Spain is not a literal country. Spain is just a movement. Spain is just a movement of mulattoes wanting their inheritance. These were Spain was literally the first wave of rebels, of daughters of concubines, and different individuals who wanted to occupy the houses of power and thwart those with the whole blood cultural inheritance, right? That's basically what's going on, right? I'm sorry, I've been looking for a particular map just to give y'all the setting of what's going down, when it's going down type shit. We're gonna have to look up. I'm gonna just have to do this. Kadena. And they also call it, they call this civilization the Greek civilization is also the Kadena, the Kadena Indian complex. You got the Hopewell, Kadena. Sorry, y'all. I'm trying to do this. I should have used Google, man. Google is that CIA shit, but at least a nigga can pull certain shit up and I can find it easier. Kadena, Hopewell, Swift Creek. Now we're talking about the proto historical Chata. Now we get back to the Chata, or also the Shambo, or the Shi, or the whatever, right? You know. There we go. Boom. That's the fucking map. Oh no, I didn't want to go there. I'm sorry. Y'all see what the fuck going on there. Y'all see what's going on around this area. See that? Alright, let's continue.
To themselves as Maroons. Maroons.
Maroons.
During the 1500s,
Moors.
were called the
Maroons.
N-word. And that's, you know what the N-word is, which is derivative of the Sanskrit word Naga. The term Naga means serpent or dragon, wisdom. This is what the N-word means according to the Oxford Dictionary. See Oxford definition. 3. A dark-skinned person of any origin in the early U.S. Usually with reference to American Indians. Usage, N-I-G-G-E-R, is considered offensive. Now that's from the Oxford Dictionary. The term American means the aboriginal copper-colored races found here by the Europeans. Copper is the reddish-brown color that closely resembles the skin color of so-called African Americans. Red comes from brown. American, a native of America, originally applied to the originals or copper-colored races found here by the Europeans.
That's another thing they always want to try to hide. This is my biggest problem with a lot of these people. A lot of these people, like, look, a lot of y'all really don't have the blood. A lot of y'all really ain't a part of the Wing Clan. A lot of y'all really don't have y'all particular lineage and have no ties to our like y'all. A lot of y'all really ain't family. Like, y'all ain't our family up in Ohio. Y'all ain't our family up in New York. Y'all ain't our family out in South Carolina. Y'all ain't our family in Louisiana. Y'all ain't our family. Like, y'all just not. A lot of y'all don't even come from this motherfucking land. You know, and it shows. Like, we can really tell y'all apart. Real talk. Like, we know what we look like and we know what we don't look like. Like, a lot of y'all, we know who is and who ain't. You feel me? We know which tribes are who's still, just based off of some of the shit we be trying to say. Like, and there's some of the girls we be attracted to, or the guys we be attracted to, whatever like that. You know, you just know the certain things that's like, oh, you know, or you might say, oh, she red bone, this or that, like that. Like, little do you know, like, that's a whole Marvingian, goddamn, like that, like that's literally a red bone, like from the Red Bone clan. Like, nigga, you don't even know, you know, it's a lot of.
But now applied to the descendants of Europeans born here in America. Now, all this information I just read you is from Webster's Dictionary, 1828, and there's a link where you can go confirm that information. Okay, so now I want to give you guys a little bit more information. We're going to talk about the Florida pirates of the original Barbary Coast.
Let's talk about Barbary.
Wars.
I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that, man. You ever heard growing up? Well, number one, you go to the barber, right? You go to the barber. Number two, you ever heard, man? Don't act like a barbarian, right? Barbarian. They got us thinking that barbarian is some is some evil shit. Like barbarian is some crazy, you know, off the wall ass nigga. Like that's what we really be thinking that. Like, but the whole time barbarian just referring to what historically you have been known to, because this is they basically try to play like this is West Africa and this is North Africa at the same time. But they also be trying to play like this is Saudi Arabia. They also be trying to play like this is certain parts of Europe, certain parts of Spain, and we got all those names over here too. They just be really conflating shit. It's real crazy once you see what's going on.
The team occurred mostly in the Americas, since Tunis, Tennessee, Algeria, Louisiana, and Greater Morocco was in the Americas. And here we have Figure 270, 1491 map of the distribution of the barbarous tribes east of the Mississippi from the University of Southern Florida. The evidence suggests that the Caribbean island and La Floridas was the original Barbary coast. Barbary is a derivative of the word Berber. The Berbers were Kushites that established Marrakesh as the capital of Morocco. The Kushites were the Moors from Meru, and Meru, which is Abyssinia in Ethiopia. The terms Moor and Berber both mean Ethiopian. The Romans used the term Barbaria, meaning land of Berber, to describe northern Africa, and Berber to describe its people. This is the etymology of the word Berber.
I bet some of y'all got grandmothers named Berber. I mean not Berber, but Barber or Barbara. Where's that whole name even come from?
As you can see, the terms Moor, May, Bay, Atlas, Atlantis are synonyms with the term Berber, and you can go ahead and fact check that with that link. Berber, from the Arabic name for the peoples living in the mountains and deserts of North Africa, west of Egypt, perhaps ultimately from Greek barbaros, barbarians. Right?
And America is also a Berber word, right?
54.
Marrakesh.
Name of their Hamitic language. Moor, North African Berber, one of the race dwelling in Barbary, late 14th C, from Old French Moor, from medieval Latin Morus. So now read that. Bay. Some linguists compare Berber, Bakwa, Blackberry, Mulberry, and suggest a common borrowing from a lost Mediterranean language. Okay. Atlas, but Beeks compares Berber, Adar, mountain, and finds it plausible that Creek name is folk etymological reshaping, end quote. So basically we was just giving definitions to these words: Atlas, Berber, Moor, and Bay. Barbary is a derivative word of the word Berber. The Berbers were Kushites that established Marrakesh as the capital of Morocco. The Kushites were the Moors from Meru, which is Abyssinia in Ethiopia. The terms Moor and Berber both mean Ethiopian. Moor and Berber, Ethiopian. But which Ethiopia / India, since we had three of them in ancient times? We have previously proven in this book that Ethiopia Superior and India Superior was in the Americas. So the original Barbary coast was as well. Lastly, we know that the Berber tribes, were all the tribes in the lands east of the Mississippi River. Tribes east of the Mississippi River shows you part of the original Barbary coasts. However, the original Barbary coast in the Americas was a much larger territory, since we are dealing with all of North Africa. Let me read that again. Lastly, we know that the barbarous tribes were all of the tribes in the lands east of the Mississippi River. Figure 270 is a 1491 map of the distribution of the barbarous tribes east of the Mississippi from the University of South Florida.
All right.
270.
So let's just go back to the map. He's saying anything east of the Mississippi, right? All of that. Can you see it? Damn. Can't even find good And they be trying to make shit harder nowadays to access any type of shit. But yeah, y'all niggas get the point. Anything beyond the goddamn Mississippi River, I'm talking about.
Shows you part of the original Barbary Coast. However, the original Barbary Coast in the Americas was a much larger territory since we were dealing with all of North Africa. We can also include Santa Barbara, California, and the Barbaros Island in the Caribbean, since we can see that both place names are derived from the term Berber.
Northwest
Africa was once called Barbaria, which means Ethiopia. Barbarous is just a descriptive word for barbarians, which is just code for the word Berber, especially since we know that the vowels are interchangeable with ancient Semitic languages. Therefore, Barbarians can easily be converted to the Berberus tribes, which were Turks and Moors. The Spanish Holy Roman Empire considered the Saracens, Moors, uncivilized barbarians because of their belief in Islam. Figure 1.
And I'm gonna wrap it on with this. I'm gonna let bro finish. We got like 7 minutes in it. I'm gonna let him finish, but this is what I'm gonna say. Think about Greek culture. I'm talking about at college, Greek life, right? Think about Georgia, Athens, Georgia, Rome, Georgia. I'ma just this is Rome, Georgia. It's a lot of little stuff out here, like yeah. See, I know next time I'm gonna do a lot of this on my damn phone, cause this shit right here don't be showing how I wanna do it. But yeah, that's a good one right here. We just gonna leave it right there. I mean, this in Rome, Georgia. Motherfucking castle. They turned it to a college. Right? And we got Florence, Alabama, Florence, Georgia. You know what I'm saying? We got all of these little buildings out here that literally look like it's from a whole different timeline.
Which is way before in the book, is a map of Ethiopia, Numidia, Mauritania, and Carthage in South America. Barbers are from North Africa, but specifically Ethiopia, Numidia, and Mauritania. We have discussed Ethiopia and Mauritania, which means to marry, the land of Maryland, or Moors land, aka the rich dark land, black land, inhabited by the Ethiopian, Indian sunburnt or dark-skinned people. However, we have not discussed Numidia. Numidia, under the Roman Republic and Empire, a part of Africa north of the Sahara, the boundaries of which at times corresponded roughly to those of modern western Tunisia and eastern Algeria.
Yep, Nigeria. And they, you see how it all come back. And then when you talk about Nigeria, now you talking about Shango. We talk about Shango. Or who they say, that's just a West African deity, but this is the West Africa too that you're talking about. So that whole story about all of this shit you've been talking about this whole time, you've really been talking about it over here. Okay.
Divided into tribes and clans. They were physically indistinguishable from the other indigenous inhabitants of early North Africa and at the end of the Roman Empire. We were often categorized as Berbers. From the 6th century BCE, points along the coast were occupied by the Carthaginians.
Even look, I ain't even talk about the clothing. I ain't even talk about how all these niggas in Hagatoas, or whatever the fuck they call, Niggas in togas and shit. Togas.
Into the interior as far as the Veste. Now, Numidian cavalry was frequently found in the Carthaginian armies by that time. End quote. And that is that link to go ahead and confirm that information.
I mean, I could even look at like, you cannot make this shit up, bro. Even down to the name of Alabama, bro. Like it's like Alabalam, whatever the shit. I had to go back over that, man. I got that file somewhere. We have to go back over that one. Great clothing. Alright. Damn, bro, why all of these pictures so small? Y'all see what I'm saying? No, Greek clothing. You seeing what I'm seeing, right? This is Greek clothing, right? Greek clothing, right? Or Creek clothing, right? And then you go back into oh my god. You go back into this, bro, and it's essentially it's a cycle, like getting down to the different bloodline. That bloodline. I'm looking for I mean
Figure 270 interlocks with similar maps of the same territory known as La Floridas, aka Tamari. So the Berbers were the high priest of Anu, Moors, that ruled this large territory of land known as Tamari, Kemet, or Egypt in ancient times, which later became Jerusalem or Granada land. Tamari is an old name for Egypt, Kemet, and it means the land of the Moors, and it is referring to Abyssinia or Ethiopia Superior. Ethiopia is a country in Africa, so we can make a convincing case that Florida was once an extension of North Africa, especially since we know that the original Africa was in South America and that Punt in Ethiopia Superior was also in the Americas. So let's go ahead and look at these figures. Figure 271, Manuel, the Florida pirate. And you see he is a...
and I'm gonna just end it right there. I'm gonna end it right there.